this purpose
What
he
did
is.
we do? He's
Recuperating.
recuperating from a procedure.
You know he's watching.
He said he was, but he also said his internet wasn't working.
Is he still on Mediacom?
I
Or
don't
did he
know.
switch yet?
I'm not sure.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Could we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I would note for the record that, with the exception of Mr. Morris, who is excused today, all members of the town council are here. Our town manager, Cliff Gravier, is here. Our assistant town manager, Terry Tiemann. Our town clerk, Christy Ray. Our IT person, Will Wharton, is here. And our building inspector, Susan Frederick, is also here. So thank you very much for coming. And thank you all for coming and joining us today. I think it's colder in here than it is outside, so I apologize. Okay, the first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda for today, and I'd like to ask for a motion to approve with the addition of a report from the Stormwater and Flooding Committee. If I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held on October 20th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The next item is the approval of the minutes of the executive session held on October 20th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is approval of the financial report. Mr. Shepley.
Thank you. Mayor and council, this report covers the summary financial statements and budget through October 31st, 2003. We are 7 months, which is 58% through the fiscal year 2024. For the revenue, to date, we have collected 85% of the budget compared to 89.7% last year. Transfer taxes and property taxes are above budgeted amounts, while building permits and rental taxes are lower than budgeted amounts. For the full year, we do expect total revenue to exceed the budgeted amount. On the expense side, total expenses are as expected. We have expended 64.8% of our budget compared to 65.8% last year. Recognizing that this report is subject to audit, I respectfully move that the council accept and approve this unaudited report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Do we have any questions, comments?
Other than the town's in good shape.
Yep.
The town is in excellent financial shape.
Thank
That
you.
is correct.
Does anyone have any comments or questions? Okay. Hearing none, there's a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Shepley.
You're welcome.
The next item on the agenda is announcements and recognition of visitors and public comment. Are there any announcements from anyone on council? Okay. And does anyone in the, who is here today have anything they would like to announce or comment on, something that is not on the agenda? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on. Under reports, the first report is from the Planning and Zoning Commission, Mr. Boswell. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, sure. You don't look like Mr. Boswell, but you're welcome. It's Mrs. Fogash, excuse me. Thank you.
The last meeting was a rather short one. I think we beat Boswell's time limit. Realigned the properties that are across from St. Anne's on 26th, and that was it.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, Mrs. Fogash. The next item is a report from the Cultural and Historical Affairs Committee. Ms. Olmsted.
I'll be up here a little bit longer than that. The Cultural Historical Affairs Committee met on November 8th. And at that time, we were still waiting for confirmation regarding the ornament of the Dinker Irvin logo and the town seal that we had been trying very hard to get produced. Fortunately, it did arrive the next day, and the order is now confirmed, and hopefully they'll be available for sale in the next few weeks, which will be nice in time for the holidays. The updated Heritage Trail brochure was reviewed and approved by CHAC. The new brochure will include 3 new locations and a new version of the map that identifies the location of each of the houses listed on the brochure. Next July 20th, visitors from our sister city in Normandy, France, will be here to celebrate Perrier Day. July 27th will be the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Perrier by the United States Army's 90th Division in 1944, shortly after the Normandy invasion. 8 Bethany families have offered to open their homes and will be hosts to the visitors during the 3-day, 4-night stay. Some of our council members are among those families, and we thank you very much. Several events and activities are being planned for this very special time. Plans were finalized for the holiday event at the Dinker Irvin Museum that's going to be held on December 9th, sponsored by the Cultural Historical Affairs Committee. There will be carolers that will set the tone for the season, set the tone by singing, and a tent will welcome visitors to make gingerbread houses. The museum will be open during this 11 to 1 o'clock event, and which is being held in conjunction with the Bethany Beach Nature Center's Meet an Alpaca event. The Nature Center is actually having 2 live alpacas there. Thanks to Julie Maluski for coordinating all these. Also, I'll just mention that our cultural evening, which was last Wednesday, with Jim Duffy, who is an author and storyteller, was attended by standing room only. We couldn't even fit everybody into the room. Jim researches little-known stories about the Delmarva Peninsula. Most of them are very, very entertaining. And he's a very engaging storyteller and was very happy that he had to stay even afterwards. Many, many people bought his books. That's all I have.
Ms. Olmsted? Carol?
Carol? Where can we buy the Christmas ornaments? Where will they be for sale?
Well, they'll be for sale in the Dinker Irvin Museum, and hopefully, maybe, we're working on seeing if we can have them for sale here. And we'll also have flyers around that will have a phone number that you can call if you're interested.
Great.
So we're hoping that within 2 to 3 weeks at the most, that they should be here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And for those of you who miss Mr. Duffy, he was very entertaining. He said he'd be back again with new stories, and I told him he didn't have to worry about new stories. We're senior citizens. We'd be hearing them for the first time anyway. So, but if you missed him, he's really worth hearing. Come back and hear him again. Okay, the next item on the agenda, thank you, Ms. Olmsted. The next item on the agenda is a report from the Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Committee. Mr. Hinman.
Great, thank you, Mayor Hardeman. So the first thing I wanted to just share is we had our last meeting on November 8th. As most of you know, we've been meeting pretty much every week to 6 weeks, very active throughout the summer. The most important thing I want to share today, though, in addition to what happened in the meeting, is I asked Teresa Keel, who was just elected to the town council. She's been an active member of the committee since its foundation to be a co-lead with me. So she graciously accepted, and with everything we have on our plate, we need both of us still. So Teresa, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So just to give you a little bit of recap, more so what's going forward. As we began to get toward the end of the summer season, we began to think about where do we want to go from here, thinking about 2024 and beyond. So that really became our focus in terms of the committee's work between seasons. So what we did is just sort of step back a little bit and just did some brainstorming, right? These were just some ideas we put together, some bounds around that. We had a lot of ideas on our committee. We also had a lot of great input from residents who either came to our meetings or shared things online. So we had a lot of great ideas. These are a summary of what those are. We actually had much more than this, but this is sort of, we combined a lot of things just sort of for brevity and being able to summarize, and then broke it into sort of 3 key areas: structural efforts, town regulations, and awareness programs. So those were our 3 big buckets that we decided we wanted to focus on. Or actually, the community decided. And so then what we've done is broken that down to help just guide our efforts going forward into 6 key areas. One is walking and biking, situational awareness initiatives. That's engaging community in different ways. Potentially more flashing beacons on Route 1, the J1 student orientation, a March workshop that we're potentially going to host for the surrounding communities to talk about best practices and where we can go from here, to share what we're doing and also learn from others. Taking advantage of the new Bethany Beach app, newsletter for enhanced communications, and then lastly, a lot more around community engagements and opportunities. We started doing that last year, and those were all pretty well received, and we'd like to even do more. And then we've just sort of took some first shots of trying to divide and conquer a little bit within our team to have folks taking bits and pieces of this so we can keep the ball rolling. So again, we have meetings scheduled going forward in January, February, and March. And later today, we're going to have in consideration for the council, 2 new members will be hopefully be joining our team that have both expressed an interest, and we'll be dealing with that a little bit later. So we're up to 9 full members now, plus great support from the police department, Julie, and others on the town staff. So, Mayor, that's it. Teresa, anything that I've missed or you want to add, please?
I don't have anything to add. That was very comprehensive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hinman. Anybody on council have any questions? Anybody here in attendance today have any questions or comments for Mr. Hinman? Okay, thank you. The next item is a report from the Stormwater and Flooding Committee. Mr. Caleb.
Thank you, Mayor. A meeting of the Stormwater and Flood Committee was called to order yesterday at 2 p.m. We had very good attendance with representatives from not only from the community of Bethany locally, but also we had people there from North Bethany and Middlesex Beach. Our newest member, Bob Collins, was introduced. He is not only a resident of Bethany, but he's also a member of the Inland Base. So I think he's going to bring good expertise to us, and will be a welcome and very experienced representative. Our speaker yesterday was Danielle Swallow of the Delaware Sea Grant, University of Delaware. She specializes in coastal hazards. She provided a most interesting and informative presentation on local climate change. Our town manager, Cliff, also briefed us on the status of several projects within town, including the Loop Canal steel flap dam, planned canal dredging, and the bulkheads and living shoreline projects, as well as beach replenishment and DelDOT's Route 1 initiative. There were numerous questions, good discussion, very positive. We discussed the new pamphlet that was just released in September covering homeowners' best practices within the town. It is now available on the homepage and continues to be distributed about town. It seems to be very well received within the community, including by surrounding communities, as we had Middlesex Beach asked if they could use it within their community. The meeting adjourned at 3:15. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a very informative meeting yesterday, thank you. Any questions or comments from Mr. Califf? Anybody in attendance? Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is a report from our town manager, Mr. Gravier.
Mayor, Council, for those who were in attendance yesterday at the stormwater meeting, I apologize for repeating some of what I went through yesterday, but I'll start with dredging in the Loop Canal. We just had a meeting with our engineers yesterday regarding the potential for Bethany Beach to dredge the Loop Canal. Over the last several months, they've done a number of different things that have taken us, I think, to a fairly positive point at this time. They've done a very extensive physical and LiDAR survey of the loop. We have some great information on different sorts of depths of the loop, but unfortunately, you need an engineer's degree to be able to interpret it. So we're asking them to dumb it down for us and give it to us so we can put it on our website so people can get a fairly good idea about existing water levels within the loop. They also did a sediment check and took samples throughout the loop to determine what that sediment was composed of. And that was important to us because sometimes sediment can be toxic and needs to be disposed of in a very, very costly manner. Their report came back to tell us that essentially the sediment in the loop is benign, if you will, doesn't have any real toxic spots, no hot spots, and can be used locally. And then they went from there to determine in what areas we might be able to place that sediment. They outlined two different areas. One was just east of Lake Bethany and some of the existing marshland, not in what looks to be an open pond back there, which is not marshland that we can't restore, but in the existing marsh there. But more importantly to us, they suggested from their perspective, and it agrees with, I think, what the town would like to see, that the land spit that separates the salt pond from the Loop Canal would be a good repository for sediment. And in addition, the Delaware National Guard has a great interest in restoring the marsh on the western side of their property that abuts their track and is adjacent to the salt pond. That has never been restored and has deteriorated a lot through the years. So that was a very positive thing for us because in addition to that, we understand that because the Guard in restoring that marsh will be actively protecting their base, if you will, the military base, that there might be some resources available through the Guard and the federal government to do that, and that would help offset some of the cost of restoring, or rather dredging, the loop. The original estimated cost from the engineers like 8 or 9 months ago was between $1 million and $1.6 million to dredge the loop. Because now we'll be able to use sediment in the area, we won't have to move it. That estimate would be at the bottom end of that 1 to 1.6. And in addition, the engineers have come back and recommended that we don't actually dredge because of the expense, which would be extreme, the actual loop itself, which is east of Route 1. There's no way for them to mobilize unless they mobilize from the roadway, and the process would be very expensive, and they suggest we take that out of our initial equation, if you will, in terms of what we might do. So they're going forward with more detail, will give us some preliminary design work, a revised estimate, and it's something that we'll have to maybe seek resources for or funding for, but it's certainly doable, and some of the news we've received from them is very positive. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is a project that was offered to the communities, suggested to the communities of Bethany and South Bethany by the town of Ocean View in 2009. And that was the establishment of a trail along the Assawoman Canal from Whites Creek, the origin of the Assawoman, to the very end of the Assawoman Canal in South Bethany Beach. That was became such a real issue for all three communities that all three communities teamed together along with some other possible affected smaller communities that aren't incorporated and worked with DENREC as DENREC developed plans to possibly develop this pathway. This pathway, as it was proposed at that point in time, would be a pathway on the western side of the Assawoman Canal from Whites Creek to Route 26 in Ocean View, and then cross Route 26 into Bethany Beach, and would be on the western edge of Bethany Beach through Turtle Walk and Bethany West as it proceeds south to Kent Avenue on the Assawoman Canal. The project was very, very well vetted. The DENREC presented a number of presentations to the community. The town actually conducted a survey in that 2011-2012 timeframe where they had 480 people respond, and I think only 15% had any oppositional views regarding it. So it was 580 rather, 446 positive as I recall. So it was well received by the community, and then the town, along with South Bethany, proposed and as resolutions for the council supporting the trail, and those resolutions in both Bethany Beach and South Bethany passed unanimously. So it was vetted thoroughly with the community, but many, many years ago. The project was constructed in Ocean View in the 2014-2015 timeframe, and then for whatever reason, I'd imagine has to do with funding within the state of Delaware, the project has come alive again. The first phase of the project was the Ocean View side. The second phase was the construction of a walkway underneath the bridge at 26. And the third phase will be the construction of a pathway from Route 26 to that Kent area on the Assawoman Canal. The DENREC has brought together the stakeholders again, and we just had again a meeting with them just here about an hour ago, where they're presenting their very, very preliminary plans. They are in development now. They will develop plans moving forward. They have no funding right now past the point of time of final design work, but I do believe this step is something that indicates they will probably be seeking funding with the next Delaware budget. So been dormant a long time, had a lot of public support at the point in time and a public viewing at the time it was raised, but right now it's coming back again. DENREC has been asked and will provide us with some more specific information as their plans become more detailed, but right now they're in the draft stage and they're not sharing them in terms of impacts. I would point out that the Assawoman Canal was turned over to the state of Delaware in 1990. It is 210 feet wide, and there are 60 feet of essentially uplands on both sides of the pathway, about both sides of the Assawoman Canal, that are owned by DENREC. In that 60-foot right-of-way is where this path will go. The path, if constructed as they propose, will be similar to what's on the north side, the west, excuse me, the eastern edge of Ocean View, and that'll be stone and crush and run. It'll be ADA compliant, and you can walk and bike on it. But something that's coming back to us again from so many years ago. And Mayor, that's all I have.
Any questions? Comments? Okay, anybody have any questions? Okay. Please state your name and your address.
Jennifer Carter, 429 Collins Street. That's fabulous. I know that there are plans on the books from DelDOT, I believe, I'm not quite sure, for also a path, a very extensive path along Double Bridges, which then ends up right about that same area, that intersection of Muddy Neck and Double Bridges, and back in through there heading south and sort of southwest. Is that being considered also so that we have more of an infrastructure, somebody designing this so that, I mean, obviously it's professionals doing this, but we're, so that things all come together, so it's not just this wonderful path that then goes there and then stops, but then can combine with the Double Bridges project?
So significantly out of Bethany Beach's jurisdiction, and there was no discussion of it meeting anything else other than continuing to, in a third phase, continuing to the south end of the Esselman Canal. And I'm not sure if they're, if both of those entities are speaking to each other, but it wasn't mentioned today.
Ron Gray had mentioned it before, that this project that he's been working on for, I guess, decades, or a long time. So that's why I was wondering, he had mentioned it when we were talking about other things, other issues, and I just thought it would be a great idea if it all
Sure.
came together. Thank you.
Mayor, Mr. Garvey, is this appropriate time that we can start, since it's sort of reinvigorating a project that was on the books or looked at a while ago? Some of the communities now, whether it's Bethany West, whether it's Turtle Walk, just to have informational kind of discussions or updates or look for feedback?
Well, I think
Are we too
I
early?
think we're doing that now, and I think just as DENREC does not want to share their preliminary draft of plans, we would be wise to wait. I think we're telling people now the possibilities out there. Hopefully people will read the paper, the minutes and other things, but I think we need to wait for them to give us more of a final plan. What we can do and make available is take their DENREC's old PowerPoint presentation from that time frame and maybe do a little bit of a news feature with it and put the PowerPoint back out there, which tells you the basics of the plan and what was the idea of it was.
Thank you.
Sir.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Gravier. Turn it over to you.
The next item on the agenda is the discussion, consideration, and possible vote to amend Article 9, 395-24 of the Bethany Beach Town Code regarding restrictions on the installation of pilings. Mayor Hardman.
Thank you, Mr. Caleb. This will be a first reading, so we don't have a vote for this. It's just going to be out there, and also so that the people, anyone, now that it's out there and made public, can comment on it, and then the council at its next meeting, which will probably be in January, would consider the final reading of it. So if anyone would have comments on it before then, please send them in. As you know, the town has a restriction on driving pilings. They're not, contractors are not permitted to drive them between, June
15th.
June 15 and September 30th. Thank you. And this is because, of course, the summer season and the vibrations and the noise that they cause. It also includes all types of pilings, not just the pilings that we see. It also includes the helical pilings and pilings that are installed by washing or letting, and that type of installation. And back in 2020, we had adopted an amendment, the council did, excuse me, requiring that if anyone was going to drive pilings, that they had to send out a certified letter to any homeowner within 200 feet of the property on which the pilings would be driven, to give them notice, so that they could, if they wanted to, they could check their foundation and their drywall and see how, make sure that it was in good shape and take pictures if they wished, so that if there were any cracks in it, they could later show that they did have some damage from it, and also to secure any fragile property like plates on the wall, et cetera, et cetera. Well, since that time, our building inspector, Mrs. Frederick, has had more experience with the type of notice and everything. And she has, based on her experience, she is recommending that we exclude from the notice requirement and also from the timing requirement any pilings that are helical, is that correct? helical pilings and pilings installed by washing or letting installation. And that is because they do not cause the vibration or the noise that the regular pilings do. So this is what we would be considering, and I don't know if you want to add anything to that? Yeah, okay. And that, basically, it makes sense, it's reasonable, I think, because people who have been involved with these other types of pilings have had to send out notices, which is basically unnecessary because there is no vibration associated with them for their neighbors. So I think this is a common sense approach that Mrs. Frederick is suggesting. So I would, that's just for informational purposes. The next reading, the reading in which we adopt it will be in January if we don't meet in December. And so if anybody has any questions, or does anybody in attendance today have any questions about it? Okay, that's all I have on that then. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a discussion, and thank you, Mrs. Frederick, for suggesting that. Next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible vote on a contract submitted by Mumford and Miller for the Collins Street pathway in the amount of $1,005,613.85. Mr. Gravier.
Mayor, Council, after a number of different iterations and certainly over a number of years, the council has a contract in front of it to finally construct the Collins Corridor project. The Collins Corridor project is a project that from Half Moon to Kent along Collins would, within the 40 and 50-foot right-of-way, construct a 30-foot wide street with a 10-foot wide pedestrian pathway attached to that street. So the whole construction would be pervious pavement. It is 30-foot wide within a 40 and 50-foot right-of-way. This project does nothing, goes on to no one's property, does not affect any private property, but it does affect town-owned right-of-way. The project would see the pathway, the pedestrian pathway, be on the south side of Collins, reach Kent Avenue, be on the west side of Kent. The Kent project, because it is under the purview of DelDOT, will not be pervious pavement because they do not use that in their projects. Would reach Wellington, where there would be a rapid flashing pedestrian beacon, and then there would be a 5-foot wide pervious pavement pathway on the south side of Wellington, reaching Route 1 and the light at that point, that juncture, the flashing pedestrian beacon there. Within the last week or so, the town has sent out a packet, if you will, to all affected property owners. The packet shows the street as it's supposed to be constructed when it's complete. It contains the initial pages of the Mumford and Miller contract and a listing of the SCD application that was reviewed and approved by the SCD, which is the Sussex Conservation District. The packet also advises property owners that it's impossible for us at this point in time to sit and tell a property owner or visit with a property owner to talk about the impact in the right-of-way, again, not on their property, that the project will have. But it does state that when the project is underway, when the contractor is available, the town will arrange for a meeting with each individual property owner that has an interest to review with the town's engineer, the construction company, and our Public Works Department impacts in their area. There are, with this project, it's anticipated that we will need approximately 7 temporary easements that will allow construction workers to step onto people's properties during the project. They have been drafted, and if the council approves this contract today, they'll be mailed out to the 7 affected property owners on Monday. So you have a contract before you from Mumford and Miller for $1,500,613.85. The town advertised this as per our requirements. We received 3 separate bids, and those bids ranged from the low of Mumford and Miller at that $1 million number to George and Lynch at $1.4 million. Our engineers have reviewed the contract and the applications from these vendors, and they recommend the council accepts the Mumford and Miller Concrete Incorporated bid of $1,500,613.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion, any questions for Mr. Gravier?
Mr. Gravier, just a quick question, because we, like you say, we have gone through that in detail. And while I was 100% in agreement and supportive of the project for safety reasons and for others, the other thing, the hard thing about it is we are impacting not people's property, but what's in front of their property, right? And that I think what we had tried to do is make the commitment, as we did with South Atlantic, to try to restore things as best as possible, right? And to make, whether it's mailboxes and the like, what I hear you saying is we're gonna do that to the degree we can.
Yes,
Right.
in the information we sent out, we're very specific
Okay.
that everything will be restored. I can tell you that I don't think there were any homeowners along South Atlantic Avenue that were not happy with the way their property was restored. And it's something that we're bound to do and have promised to do, yes.
I think in some cases, they felt it was better than it was before.
Some did.
I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah.
There's improvement.
Thank you.
Sir?
Mayor?
Mr. Shapley?
I just want to make sure I would like to clarify, because not everybody that's, the public that's here today has the information we have. The contract that we're bidding, or that we are going to vote on, is for $1,005,000, not $1,500,000. It's $1,005,613.85.
Right. So it's lower than what the engineers had first estimated.
The engineer's estimate was 1.2 million.
Yeah. And this is paid for entirely by grant funds,
The resources here will be entirely grant dollars.
and no tax dollars.
No,
Thank you. Okay, does anyone, by the way, I think this is on the website, isn't it? Yes. Well, just for your information, all the items that the council will be considering are posted on the website under briefing materials, under the notice of this meeting. So you find this here and everything else we've talked about at today's meeting there. So in the future, if you wanted to if you were interested in an item, please check that even before you come to a meeting so you get an idea of what will be discussed. So I just wanted to mention that. Anybody else on council?
Mr. Gravier, do we have a schedule, a tentative schedule for when the construction may start if this contract is approved?
not at this time. We will meet with the contractor the last week in November, and the contractor will tell us that schedule. We do know as part of the contract that the contractor is required to have completed the project by May 15th.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone who wishes, yes, please come to the, identify yourself and your address, please.
My name is Kate McNamee, 433 Collins, and we got our packet, and I think I need some dumbing down. The contract is that all-inclusive. There's no override if they get in there and they find something that's going to cost more money.
With contracts like this, there are always add-ons.
Okay, that's fine. The other thing I didn't see, and I don't, maybe you've told us the answer, but the swales on the south side of Collins, how are they going to be addressed?
The part of the contract is grading, and I think that's very clearly expressed in the very first part of that contract. So your driveways will all be graded back to appropriate slopes. So individual swales, very few individual swales, but they'll still be functional. We wouldn't fill swales as part of the project.
I guess the thing is, some of the swales will be right, here's the sidewalk, here's the swale. Are people going to go into the swale?
No,
Mr. Gravier, I think in some cases they are covered, but there's pipe that's replacing
Yeah.
the swale. Yes,
so
I believe
everything
that
will be
was-
restored.
Right, but you won't go down in a ditch.
That's what I'm saying.
Right,
So the
right.
ditch
So-
will be covered.
Correct,
Okay.
with a pipe replacing the swale.
And then
Is
my,
that correct?
Yes, I'm certainly.
my last question is, in the contract, it said, medium trees, big trees, blah, blah. Do we not find out if it's our tree until we have our sit-down?
I don't have a list of affected trees, but those are trees that are in the right-of-way, and so there's no trees from individual property owners.
All right, so you won't come over the 5 feet?
No, no,
Okay.
certainly not.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Ms. Carter?
It seems Jen Carter, 429 Collins. It seems we keep on not really thinking, but thank you, Mr. Hinman, that this does affect our property. No, you're not taking our property, but it does affect our property. So I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Hinman, for bringing that up, because it's how it looks also, and how we'll have to deal with it when things are happening. The packets were sent on November 13th. That was Monday. So anyone who lives elsewhere, if they wanted to be here today to voice some opinion, they were unable to do that. A lot, I think, because they didn't receive it until today. I received mine today. So I'm just making that clear also, that the communication was, it seemed a little late for people who might want to comment today.
And if I may
That's all.
answer that, the packet references the fact that answers should be directed to my office, questions directed to my office, that there wasn't anything to evoke a question from the package. So it was a diagram of what was there. It was us telling you that we couldn't speak specifically to impacts and that you would have to have a meeting. So I don't know how people would react to that very just basic information. So the idea that it wasn't sent properly, I
I'm not saying it wasn't sent properly. I'm saying that, again, it's just out of courtesy that it was, people do want to come speak. They don't want to just call your office. So I'm just saying it was an opportunity. That's all.
The meeting was noticed over 10 days ago, and this item's been on the agenda since then.
Okay. Also, I just want to make a note that we are not a corridor. You may have to delineate between, that's what this project is, but we are a neighborhood. And all along, we've been trying to communicate that we're really not a corridor. And we really want to keep on that mentality of neighborhood rather than corridor. Just a comment. It doesn't need anything, just want everybody to know. Communication. Some people ran on the platform of communication, and you had promised me communication with email with the list of the people that communicated with the town through email about this project, that there would be a list, and those people would get communication as a grouping about how things are proceeding. Just the fact that this is proceeding is a communication that, again, I think would have been a great thing on an email, just to shout out, hey, we are beginning, and, that's it. Just a closer communication than a packet, And I hope, I'm asking that email list be used regularly as things proceed, and also, how do people get on it? Because I know there are people, and we'll be glad to share with our constituents, but how do they get on that list if they would like to be on that list? Because it's been gathered from just people who commented to the town on the project, right?
Yes, they can contact the manager's office and ask to be put on the list, certainly.
Fabulous. Will they, I'm kind of backing up, the data you said again about dumbing it down, but there are those, not I, who can understand all those things as an engineer would. So those not dumbed down versions of all the information and data, those will be found on the website or can be found?
I'm not clear.
That was about the path, it was about,
It was about the dredging,
Thank you.
the water levels in the canal. It was about the dredging.
Just people who can do that can know, because I wouldn't, but,
We don't have it in a way that it's presentable yet, so
Okay.
when it is, we'll put that out.
okay.
We're waiting
Great.
for it.
And again, just with the communication, the schedule, I had heard there was kind of a tentative schedule, so again, the grapevine is wonderful in Bethany. So, it's really tentative, but it would be really great if somebody who is in charge of that email list and those communications really does do a regular.
There is no schedule, otherwise we would have published it.
Okay, but we will get the emails starting soon, right? Because we're starting.
As soon as we know what the contractor is plan is, we'll let everyone know.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Cliff, I believe it also says that you or the engineer and the contractor will come out individually to individual lots and go over things in specifics if requested.
Yes,
If they have a question.
I
Right.
think the
Okay.
if requested part is important,
requested,
right?
yeah.
The
Yeah.
individual homeowners need to request it.
Right.
They can't wait for someone to knock on their door.
Right.
Right.
And I think that's what,
That's one of my questions.
no, that
in the
was in the
letter.
letter.
It's in the letter.
It's in the letter
Yeah.
that you received, that each
I
individual
received
received.
mine on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay, that was one of my questions. I'm in North Carolina, 501 Collins, Damiano family. Lot is still flooding for 43 years. Not as bad, since Bethany did do drainage and everything else, but we had a big flood again between Janice's house, my house, and the back of the neighbor on the other side of us. With this project, how is that gonna affect anything? Do those drains get cleaned out? Like, why are we still having flooding in between? I'm at 501, the left side of me and the right side. I don't have my map because I'm from North Carolina, just happened to be here. My package is sitting in North Carolina. So that was one of my concerns is, are these things being cleaned out, drained? Why am I still having flooding? We had a bad one about 4 years ago, and now I just had another one this summer.
You're having flooding. Well, a bad one this summer was 4.5 inches of rain in 2 hours.
I know.
The entire community was flooded.
Well,
You
not
have-
really.
You have flooding, yeah, oh yes, Route 1 was flooded, Route 26 was flooded, Pennsylvania Avenue had 2.5 feet of water on it, so.
I mean, it's
So-
better than it used to be. We would, every time we'd have a downpour every summer, we would be flooded. But they did the drainage and everything else. I think the main drainage is across in front of Mark's house, whatever his house number is, 437.
So
I think
the-
everything drudges there.
3/4 of the community is at sea level.
Oh, I know.
Okay, so, and
I
the
know.
community drains into the Loop Canal.
Yeah.
And all of our swales, our conveyances are all open swales.
Right.
So any event pushes water into those swales, back into the community, south into Bethany West.
Yeah.
So we're in the process of trying to deal with that with the dam that we talk about at the confluence of the Loop and the Asswoman. That'll
Okay.
take care of a good bit of that flooding.
Okay.
We won't be able to activate it for every event, but it'll take care of the more significant events.
Yeah, because
We don't have the luxury of being able to pipe because we're too low. And there's
know.
no way we can grade to get pipes to drain water into the Loop Canal.
Yeah. I know. I asked my father, my father has passed 5 years ago, so I took over the house, and I'm like, Dad, why did you build a house 5 feet above sea level? It's like, what? Back to the engineer. I'm in North Carolina, so how is that going to handle? I just need to know, can we do it by phone, or do I need to be here physically? How is that going to process? Once you guys approve this and we're ready to move forward?
In the packet, my office email address and my office phone number. If you have a question specifically about your property,
do.
then you need to just contact us. We are
Okay.
keeping a list. When the project begins, we'll begin to try to arrange those meetings between the engineer and the contractor and the homeowner.
Okay. And I could do that via phone?
Sure.
Okay. Is that it? I thought there was one more thing, but I can't remember. Not that we're real happy with this. No one's ever been hurt on Collins Street. No one's ever been hit by a car. It's just curious how this has transpired with 26 parallel to us. So, and like Jen said, it's not going to affect our property, but we will probably lose 2 parking spots, when the whole family comes down in the summertime. So you say it's not going to affect us, but it will affect every house.
Please talk into the microphone.
We've known each other a really long time, since the 80s, but this is the kind of example is what I'm talking about with communication. The packet is wonderful, it's full of information, and it has your name and phone number and email address. But to have something in place that people can count on, that they're going to get an email that says, if you want to sign up, you want to do this, if you would like a visit, it's proactive rather than reactive. And since she's down in North Carolina, this is more, your response, if I may, is more reactive at this point, even though we've talked about all this, right, for a lot. But she has, and it's not that people aren't interested, and it isn't that they're just doing other things and not coming and now complaining about it. The email would be a consistent means of communication is my point, okay?
I would
We
also.
have a lot of people like this that are,
Yes.
that try,
You know,
but
there's almost, to your point too, we understand and we want you to be informed, but I think Mr. Gravier has gone out of his way to include too in every packet, saying this is my phone number, this is my email. If you have a question or concern about your individual property, please let me know and we will come out and talk to you.
Mayor,
and I understand.
Mayor, I have never put my home number in that.
Please, 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 please.
And he's at Parkway every Friday. No, I'm just kidding.
And there will be, and there will be communication from time to time, but the town is not going to go out and hold everyone's individual hand. We can't do that.
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
But it really takes no effort, because I asked at first to have a liaison, because you're too busy, and probably Teresa's very busy, but somebody along this project, there's a lot of heart in this for us, there's a lot of anxiety in this for us, and to have someone who can just send out an email. I mean, it really doesn't take much. One little paragraph. This is what's happening this week. This is what's happening next week. This is what, just
This
quick.
week, but not every minute of every day.
No.
Okay.
No, but just a regular something that, also, you know what it shows, Mayor? It shows that, other than the packet and putting your name and email address on something, that you're reaching out to us in a different way, in a
yes,
personal,
yes.
emails are personal, right?
Right.
So,
Well,
that's
and I
all,
think
thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I say one thing? I think
Please speak into the microphone, too.
the email that's on the letter is admin@townofbethanybeach.com, and more than one person can see that, right?
Yes.
So it's not that you're just emailing the town manager who's too busy. There are people who answer that email address, email box, and spread it around to the appropriate departments.
Well, emails are answered. We receive somewhere between 15 and 18,000 emails a year, but we answer emails. So, and part of all this has been, since we've had so many of these discussions, and we do make an effort to inform, is that if you're opposed to this project, and there are people opposed to it, no level of communication is going to make you happy.
Change it, yes.
Okay, and that's something I think we all need to recognize.
And
So-
I can say personally, I have a pen pal relationship with a number of people on Collins, and for that reason, and I do respond to every single one, and they come back with additional questions, and we respond to that too. So I think to say that we haven't tried to communicate is not, okay.
Madam Mayor, I didn't say you haven't tried to communicate. Not at all. My point is that it will be a nice thing during this project, at its height, that you all are communicating to us. That's all.
And we will
That's
do
all.
that.
That's all.
Okay. We may have a different idea of communication, but we will communicate. Thank you, Jim. Is there anyone else who would like to comment? Yes.
I have a cold, so
Janie?
I'll speak as best I can. Janie Switzer, 318 Wellington. This Collins Corridor project, or whatever you want to call it, affects a lot of people. This, I don't always 100% agree with everything the town council says or does. However, I feel so emotional about this because they work so hard. I come to meetings. If you're not in town, get on the Zoom link. I've listened to meetings when I'm not here. I just don't think it's fair that there are people out there saying that they don't work hard and they don't try to communicate. And the agenda for this meeting has been out there for a long time, and I get emails from the town all the time because I'm signed up, and safety is important, and I just feel like the town council gets a raw deal sometimes. And come to the meetings, talk, every one of these people, half of them have dogs. I see them walking past my house every day. They're always available. Please, just give them a break. And thank you for everything you all are doing. It upsets me This town is very important to me. And actually, I own 3 homes in this town. And it just, please do a better job of communicating with them and being present. Just please be present. And that's how you're going to know what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Janie. I think we understand, and you will get your communication, Jen. I know. Yeah. I know. I don't want to beat this to death. I'm sorry to make you walk, but this is being recorded, and we want to hear every word.
I think what she meant by the email was more about how if this week, this road's going to be done. This week, this road.
Yes.
This week, that.
Right.
That's what we're looking for. And I think it'd be easier for you guys to send a mass email than have 40 homes calling you up and emailing you saying, when is my street? When's, it was more just a comprehensive
Yes.
bullet of the procession down the road.
Yes. And you have explained it very well. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Is there anyone else? Okay.
But I just wanted to comment something. In today's world of construction, it's very hard to even set down a deadline because even though they tell you they're going to be there at that particular time, sometimes for whatever reason, they're not.
Right.
So you can't be disappointed because we told you a wrong date.
Right.
So, there's a lot of things go into this thing, and it's not sitting written in, no pun intended, stone, so.
I would argue, though, in some cases, people will have their driveways blocked during this project. I
Right.
realize it may just be for half a day.
Yes.
But in that case, there does need to be communication.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if
yeah.
it's delayed, it's
In that
delayed.
case, yes,
We can't
yeah.
help that it rains,
Yeah.
but then the homeowners need to be told.
Exactly.
I agree, but it's not set in stone, these dates, so.
Right. We will do our best, and we appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
And for those of you who don't know, I also live on Collins Street.
Yes, we know.
And you can direct all communication to Teresa.
I live at 414. Knock on my door.
Absolutely not.
And
Mayor?
thank you. Yeah.
Mayor, can I ask one other, or offer one other thing? And speaking to the whole communication issue, because there's the individual homeowner communication, right? The meeting with the engineer and the like. But I think, Mr. Carter, what you're speaking to is almost more of a general around just the whole project. If we were to say something like, and I don't want to commit to, but once we know, now we'll soon, at some point, have a construction schedule that we can start to work off of, right?
When we have something to communicate, we'll communicate it.
Yeah.
But
Right.
all we've had are these big
No, no.
block issues today.
No,
so-
and Mr. Guerrero, I'm not talking about before, I'm actually talking about now. Once we get our plan, we're going forward. If we were just to have a weekly general communication that said, again, it's sort of even hard to tell what the communication would be until you know what the schedule is, but just to, if that, would that help a little bit?
Yes, yes, yes.
It's not going to be an individual communication, though. It's going to be to,
In general.
Yeah.
we're X% complete, we're working on this.
Well, this woman
that
just
help?
pointed out, like we did with Comcast. Yeah, that was helpful.
So
But-
maybe if we can look
Yeah.
at something that's,
When construction begins, we'll do something
yeah,
like that,
yeah,
sure.
okay.
And individual homeowners, you're right, with the driveways or something is very important.
South Atlantic Avenue, people were individually contacted for any closures, so
Yeah.
it's something they do, so,
You've been down this road before.
all of you.
Oh, I
yes.
know. No, but thank you for raising those concerns. I think it's very good to talk about them. Okay. And to be sure we're on the same page. Okay. And we'll find out if we are once we start down the path. Okay. Okay, no more. Okay, that's it. All right, we have a motion on the floor and a second to approve the contract submitted by Mumford and Miller for the Collins Street pathway in the amount of $1,005,613.85. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you, and thank you all. The next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible vote on a revision to the fund balance policy as recommended by the Budget and Finance Committee at their meeting on October 18th, 2023. Mr. Shepley.
Thank you. Mayor, Council, I think you all have a copy of our fund balance policy. At our August and October meetings, the Budget and Finance Committee reviewed the town's fund balance policy. The committee recommends a revision to the policy to add the following text, quote, "Assets with a useful life of 40 years and over will be adjusted for cost inflation using the construction cost trend of distribution pipelines in order to better represent the cost of replacing our underground pipes and other assets," end quote. This change will only affect the capital replacement reserves in the water fund. That is the only fund that currently has assets that are 40 years or more. It will increase the recommended range to between $1.4 million to $3.7 million for the current year. This policy change will not trigger any increase in fees since reserves already held by the water fund are well within the revised recommended range. I would like to make a motion that the council make this change to the fund balance policy.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
If I could just try to explain this a little bit. The generally accepted accounting terms or policies require us to record assets in the amount that we pay for those assets. So we buy a car for $50,000, that's on the books for $50,000. It's the same for major assets, the water tower, the pipes running under the road. Those assets are expected to last 40 years or more. So you can imagine we buy some pipes and install them in the road 30 years ago at $100. They're going to cost us a lot more than $100 to replace those pipes. That's the driving force behind this change. It will not affect our financial statements at all. Those assets will still be on our books at the historical cost, but the calculation of the reserves will be adjusted each year by this construction cost trend of distribution pipelines, which was the closest government-produced analysis that we could use in this case. So I just want to make sure everybody understands. It's not going to affect our financial statements. It's not going to cause any kind of increase in fees for this change. It's just going to increase, theoretically increase, the high end of the reserve range that we'll use to try to better match what it's actually going to cost us to replace these long-term assets. Thank you.
Does everybody understand that?
Yeah, I think it was good.
Okay, good, yep, very good.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Patrick.
Thank you.
Good job, thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? Does anybody attending here have any questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Mr. Shepley, for a very simple and concise explanation. Mr. Morris would approve.
Thank you.
He's probably watching. Okay, with that, we have a motion on the floor in the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you again. Okay, the next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible vote on a contract submitted by McCormick Taylor for the final design and bid package for the Loop Canal dam structure in the amount of $378,300. Mr. Gravier.
Mayor, Council, over a year and a half ago, the town contracted with McCormick Taylor to develop a 30% plan to construct a dam at the confluence of the Esselman and Loop Canal. We know from research over the years that a dam constructed there would significantly impact probably 95% of what we call our nuisance flooding, our tidal flooding that we see here with increasingly more frequency day in and day out. We reached the point in time where they have finished that level of work. As a matter of fact, their 30% design was probably more of a 65% design. And we've also gone to the time, effort, and trouble with them to really review potential impacts on surrounding communities. That review has pushed us back a little bit in terms of where we are with the project. But at this point in time, we're ready to go ahead with a final design, which would include a contract for that package, which would include all permitting, all environmental assessments, a semi-final design for our review, and then a final design. Along with that, within the contract, there are a number of public meetings scheduled, and again, a final bid package with the project. So this is the final step here to take us to the point in time where we can construct the dam. What we'll need then is to seek funding. Right now, if we move ahead with this contract, we'll have roughly $500,000 invested in what we're doing with the dam. Potential dam construction would cost us $2 million, and by the time we get done with oversight and contingencies, construction of the dam with all the planning and design would cost us about $3 million. We're actively seeking funding right now with what we do have in hand, but this is the next step we have to take in order to bring the dam to fruition.
Thank you, Mr. Gravier. Do I have a motion on the floor?
Can I actually ask a couple
Well,
questions?
first, we need to have a motion, yeah. You want to move it? Okay. A second?
Second.
Okay. Now, any questions?
Just one, really. Is there any sort of schedule, rough schedule? Is it 6 months for this part of the project? Is it 12 months? Because there's a lot of work in this proposal.
I think they're comfortable that within the next 6 months, certainly by summer, that they'll be.
Okay.
I think
They-
a lot
they-
of it depends on other agencies, too.
Understood.
Yeah, DENREC and U.S. Army Corps of Engineers as
Well, the
well.
permitting, I'm just in terms of design.
Right.
So I think they'll be through the design. They're deep into the design because they're looking at two different types of designs. So they're there now. The permitting will be the long haul here. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Gravier, thank you. That was a great question, Teresa. I think from a perspective as a resident here, this is really pretty exciting stuff, right? I mean, I know there's been a lot of work over the years thinking about this, and I know we've even tried to change the terminology from nuisance flooding, right? Nuisance flooding is a little water in your backyard. What we're talking about is not any.
Nuisance
significant.
doesn't do it
Right.
justice, unfortunately.
And if that we're making the sort of the next major block here to do the design for this, I think it's pretty exciting for the community. I mean,
Right.
I really, I'm not an engineer, I don't understand the whole thing, but I sort of get the concept. And if that helps here on the other side where we typically get that
Right.
severe, I think that would really be something that we'd be all proud as citizens and
Right.
About that effort. So, Gary, thank you again for the continued work and leadership on this. I know it's been a lot of work, but I'm excited that we're starting to move even closer to something, the reality of something like that.
I think the big thing that people will see, even if, those of us who live north of 26 or north of Garfield Parkway are familiar with the flooding that we get whenever there's a high tide, and it takes a while for it to go down. I think for everyone who doesn't live there, the big difference you'll see is that you'll be able to get to the post office without having to wear boots or take a boat. It
Or a
will,
pigeon.
it will prevent the flooding that we get regularly about 10% of the year. And I think a lot of the credit goes to Mr. Gravier. This whole project started years ago, at least 20 years ago, and it's been studied over time, and at some points it's been laid aside, and people have said they didn't want to go forward with it anymore, but he was persistent, and he kept pushing for it, and I think it's to his credit that we're at the point we're at now. So thank you, Mr. Gravier.
Mayor, I just hope it works.
What? Okay, does anybody in attendance have any questions or comments? Okay, and no more, go ahead.
The cost of this that we're going to vote on here shortly, are there any huge amounts of, does this include the cost, the actual cost of permits? Or is that another figure yet to come? And if so, is that a major figure yet to come?
We'll be paying the cost of the permits. We'll be submitting the permits.
Separately from this?
They'll fill it in. We'll do the submission for the permits. So there'll be a cost involved. I don't believe it's significant at all.
They're not that astronomical or anything? Okay.
They're not based on construction costs. They're based on the Corps' review and Denrick's review, so.
Got it.
Any more questions, comments? Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second to accept the proposal from McCormick Taylor for the final design and bid package of the Loop Canal Dam structure in the amount of $378,300. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Gabriel. Thank you, Ms. Carter. The next item on the agenda is a discussion, consideration, and possible vote to accept a contract presented by the Delaware Geological Service for $139,962.10 for a 5-year contract for the cost of installation, monitoring, and maintenance of 3 tidal gauges to be installed in the Loop and Assawoman Canals. Mr. Gravier.
Mayor, Council, for a number of years, the town has operated a tidal gauge that's been installed at the Loop Canal at Delaware Route 1 and the Loop on the western side of the Delaware Route 1 bridge. That tidal gauge is an integral part of one of the things we have on our website that allows you to look at current tidal levels and determine the amount of flooding in the community. When we first installed this, and it's a lot of Bluetooth and wireless gizmos in the gauge itself, it worked very well. But when we had to do an upgrade because of a shift from 3G to 4G, the equipment that we've had has never really worked the way it should, and it's hard to find anyone in the immediate area that can service the equipment. The vendors out of New England, and they do nothing to support their equipment once it's sold. We were at our wits' end, but we came upon what's an option for us that's really a godsend, if you will, and that is the ability to partner with the U.S. Geological Service. The U.S. Geological Service operates tidal gauges throughout America. Their information is available on the web. Not only do they install, they also do all the maintenance, and they're very, very good with maintaining their gauges. In our discussions with them, and also with our engineer McCormick Taylor, we determined that it would also be a benefit to us, especially as we determine how this dam will operate and what the criteria will be for raising the dam and lowering the dam, to establish, get a better handle, if you will, on the water levels within the Assawoman Canal. There is no gauge here at the north end. There is a Delaware DGS gauge at the south end near Jefferson Bridge Road, but nothing near Bethany and nothing near White's Creek, which is the northern end of the Assawoman Canal. So with that in mind, in dialogues with the USGS, they have agreed to install 3 tidal gauges for us, maintain those gauges, and do all the necessary work to keep them up and working, and replace as needed over a 5-year period for the 3 gauges for a total price, as listed in the contract here, of $139,962.10. The USGS does the work, but the work is administered through the Delaware Department of Geological Survey, and that's the process that they have. There's been also a good bit of offset here with the USGS helping us with some co-pays on the cost of the gauges that are represented here that take the price down to the $139 from a higher number. So that's the contract, and a vote, if it would be a good thing here. So.
Thank you, Mr. Gravier. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any questions, comments?
It's important, especially as a coastal community like we are, to actually be able to monitor this for not only for safety purposes, but for the safety of the community itself.
I'm very experienced at this. As you know, we live along the canal. And the one that we've had downtown, whenever I monitor it constantly, and I know too, since ours has been down, I monitor the one at Fred Hudson. And I know exactly when high tide is at the Indian River Inlet, when high tide is going to be by my house. It's going to be 3 to 4 hours later. And then when it gets to 2.5 feet, I do something. When it gets to 3 feet, we go out and sandbag. So we depend on that because I don't ever want to sandbag, so I watch it 2.5, 2.6, and I pray that it never reaches 3. But I think this is wonderful for the town, and what I like to see here, it says, the free USGS water alert service is publicly available for anyone who wishes to receive email or text message notifications when data for the site meet user-specified criteria. When it reaches that certain flood stage, they will warn you, which I think is good. And then the other thing I like about this is that it's important to note that any site repairs or equipment replacements are included in the attached pricing. There are no additional charges for site repairs, equipment replacement, extra site visits to address any needs during the agreement period, which is very good.
And not only that, but they'll come down and install temporary gauges for us, and they already have done that in some storms. They installed some temporary gauges on Pennsylvania Avenue when we knew we were going to have a significant weather event here this fall. They come down, they install them, the data is available at the time, but the partnership with USGS will be a real benefit for us moving forward. So,
And if anybody has seen the tidal gauge, if you go on the USGS website and then go down to the Fred Hudson gauge, I mean, you click on that, it's amazing the information it gives you, and then it gives you 30 days, 60 days, whatever you want to see, and the ups and downs. It's very informative. I'm looking forward to it. Yes,
Mayor, Mr. Garvey, again, just thinking about some of this out loud, will this actually be part of the, I know this is down the road, but sort of the algorithm or whatever around the dam operating?
Yes.
Coming into play? So it's,
so the information there. So one of these gauges will be at the confluence of the Assawoman and the Loop Canal. So we don't have anything there. In order to make that determination, we'll need the gauge. The gauge will be installed on the Ocean View side in a little gut. They have that little walkway that's part of this path we spoke about earlier. The gauge will be attached to that bridge into that little body of water there.
Okay, anybody else? Mr. Fry?
One quick comment. At our flood meeting yesterday, we had Danielle Swallow here. She gave a good talk, as we mentioned already. But afterwards, he came up to me and said, "This is fantastic that you guys want to partner with the Geologic Society." So she was really in favor of it. So she was good.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second to accept the contract presented by the Delaware Geological Service for $139,962.10 for a 5-year contract for the cost of installation, monitoring, and maintenance of 3 tidal gauges to be installed in the Loop and Assawoman canals. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much, Mr. Gravier.
Mayor.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible vote on the town procedure and protocol manual. Mr. Kilmer.
Thank you, Mayor. This is what the procedure looks like, in case anybody doesn't know what it is. It's a very important document, especially for new members of council. It gives them a clear idea, an overview of what their responsibilities are, what are the things that the town is about, and also how to do things. And it's important for especially new members to sit there and actually spend some time reading it. They'll get a lot of information, and they'll know how to, basically from almost day one of being a very proactive member of the council. And each time this year, we hope people will spend the time just review it. Any changes they would like to see, this is the time of the year that we consider those changes for the protocol manual.
Do you want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion. I'm sorry?
well,
Motion and second before we do discussion.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the town council procedure and protocol manual for this particular year.
And before you say something, let me just, I just want everybody, I'm going to take a prerogative of the chair now. I want everyone to know that the person who wrote this was Mr. Kilmer, and it has been added to every year. He did a fantastic job, and we are all very grateful to him.
Hear, hear.
Go ahead. Thank you, Mr.
That's
Kilmer.
exactly what I was going to say, and I had the opportunity to sit with, Ron and I think sat with Lou when we went over some of it, you know, and so, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. But I think it's important, you know, to be a very productive and a proactive member. You have to know what you can do, what you can't do.
And are there any changes that anyone is
Yes.
recommending? Okay, no changes this year. Thank you very much. Okay, now we have a motion on the floor and the second to accept the protocol manual without any changes this year. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you again, Mr. Kilmer.
Oh, you're welcome.
The next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible vote on committee guidelines and standing committees. Mr. Shepley.
Thank you. Mayor and council, you all have a copy of our Bethany Beach Committee guidelines. Like the protocol manual every year, we review these guidelines, making any necessary changes, and approve them for the current year. I'm aware of at least 2 proposed changes this year to these guidelines, so in order to get the ball rolling, I'd like to make a motion to approve the committee guidelines as currently stated, and then we can discuss and approve the amendments, and then we can approve the entire guidelines.
Is there a second?
So that's a convoluted motion, but that's to get the ball started.
Are there any?
Second.
Oh, second, okay. Anybody, I have suggested changes, but I would ask anybody else if they have them to go first. Okay. Just for clarification, under agenda, and I sent these out in advance so you could see them, I think there had been some confusion about agenda items, so this really quotes from the FOIA manual that's given out for FOIA coordinators, and it just gives, the agenda should be worded in plain and comprehensive language so that those members of the public with an interest in the subject matter will know what is being discussed. It just goes there. And also, the importance of not listing items such as new business or any new business as a final catch-all, but to specifically list items. You can list something that says, suggested agenda items for future business, future meetings. And then also the importance of once you send out the agenda 7 days in advance, that you don't add items at the meeting unless it's unless it's necessary and for good reason, and explain why. And then the other addition was under meetings, that they, if at all possible, they should not be scheduled during the week in which a council meeting is scheduled to be held. And committee chairs should consult with the town clerk prior to finalizing committee meeting dates. And this is just out of consideration to the time of the town staff, who is very busy during council meeting weeks. So those are the 2 changes that I would recommend. May I amend your motion? Or
You may.
I amend the motion to include these 2 changes relating to meetings and agenda. And if anybody wants to second it or discuss it.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Well, I think they're appropriate. And I think I'm certainly in favor of both of these changes.
Okay. Do we want to vote? Oh, call for a vote?
Sure.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor in the second to accept the committee guidelines with the 2 revisions that were proposed. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you very much. And
Next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible vote on the appointment of Mark Cohen and Brad McIlvain to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Committee, and Bob Rush to the Charter and Ordinance Review Committee. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Caleb. Mr. Hinman has asked that we add 2 people to his, to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Committee. Mark Cohen, who you all knew, ran for council this year, and Brad McIlvain, who also serves on the Telecommunications Committee. They both had expressed interest in being part of the committee. Mr. Hinman has room on the committee, and they are 2 very good candidates. They are very interested in participating in that committee. And then also Bob Rush, who is going to be added as a member of the Charter and Ordinance Review Committee. And you all received background on them, and I would ask that, I make a motion that the council approve their appointment to those particular committees. Is there a second?
Second. All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any
Opposed?
opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you all. Before we go, consider the motion to go into executive session, I just wanted to, on the behalf of all the town council and the staff, I wanted to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and wanted to thank you all for being here and expressing your opinions, especially my friends on Collins Street. Thank you. No, it has been a very productive year, and I think the give and take and the comments are very helpful for all of us to come to the best decisions and hopefully understand one another better. So I just wanted to thank you all. I wanted to thank especially to everyone who participates in the committees, the chairs and the members of the committees, because without you and your generosity and the time that you give to these committees, the town would not be functioning as well as it has been, or as well as it is. And I also want to thank my colleagues. I mean, these are the greatest people in the world to work with, so thank you. And last but not least, I think I speak for everyone when I say that we owe a debt of gratitude to Mr. Gravier and to all our town staff, Mrs. Tiemann, Christy back there, Will Wharton, and everyone who works in this town. They all, even the people who are in public works, they pick up the trash and they have a smile on their face, and they're always there to help us. So everyone, every last person who works for this town, they're the ones who make the council look good. So it's all their fault. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Okay, and then the last item on the agenda is we have discussion, consideration, and possible vote to
Mayor?
make a, yes.
The December meeting?
Oh, yes, unless, I forgot to say that, yes, thank you. Unless anyone on the council has any objection, I'd like to suggest that we only have a December meeting if it's absolutely necessary. I don't think anybody would object. Okay. Unless you're all dying to have one? No?
No.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Gravier. See how invaluable he is? He remembers. Okay, discussion, consideration, and possible vote to go into executive session to discuss personnel matters pursuant to 29 Delaware C 10004, B9 and 6, involving personnel matters and potential litigation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone, and happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
And to
Thanksgiving.
anybody who's watching virtually, and happy Thanksgiving, Jerry.
Sure, we did that in Atlanta. So I don't want to.
Yeah.